Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my stillbirth story. So we basically left off at the part where we went home after finding out that from the hospital after we found out that our son Michael didn't have a heartbeat. So after we dropped my daughter off to my parents' house, my husband drove me straight back to the hospital and said his goodbyes, and he went home to have a sleep, and I spent overnight in the hospital. The next morning my husband came in. I was to be induced that morning, and unfortunately he came in very, very ill. I believe that his illness was caused by the intense grief, sadness, and all those emotions that my husband was feeling, and they manifested in a physical form. So he really didn't look well when he came in, and as soon as the midwife walked in, she looked at my husband and said, "Are you sick?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm actually not feeling that well." And she said, "Right, out. You need to get out of this hospital. I don't want any babies being at risk of catching whatever you've got." Now, the truth of the matter is, and keep in mind, this was a private hospital that I was paying for. I was not even put in the labour ward. They had me in a separate room outside of the labour ward. I will not name the hospital. In one of those rooms where they put the women that are recovering from hysterectomies, etc. At the time, I was so distressed and so vulnerable and so whatever. My husband looked at me and I knew that he was really ill, and I just thought I didn't have the energy to fight. So I looked at him and I said, "Okay, go," because he wasn't good to me sick anyway. And he left. An hour later, I got the call that, he sent my father-in-law down. Unfortunately, my parents had a funeral to go to that day, and they also had my daughter. And I did not want my daughter to see me in hospital like that. So my parents, took on that responsibility of, looking after my daughter and stuff like that. And so I spent the day with my father-in-law. He's quite a religious man, and he's very good with words, and he's quite comforting. So it helped having him there. And I'm Christian myself, so I've always had very strong faith in God and Jesus since I was a little girl. So that really helped. And so it took all day to get things going, and I remember it was 9:30 at night, and family had been in throughout the day, mainly my husband's side of the family. We didn't really tell anyone about this except for close family members at the time. And so the last of the family left. It was 9:30, and I felt labour starting, and I was in the room all by myself. And I remember the midwife coming in, and they were very busy that night with, live births. My baby was dead, so who really cares? That's how I felt anyway. And she came in, and I said, "I think labour's starting." And she said, "Do you want any pain relief?" I said, "Yes." And she left me. She came back in with like some pethidine or something, and she put that in me. She gave me the shot, and she left because she was so busy, and I laboured on my own. I was all by myself. But let me tell you something. I did not feel like I was on my own. There was a very, very strong spiritual presence in the room. I reckon the room was full of angels or full of I don't know what. I did not feel alone. And I'll never forget, I was probably the whole labour took about 6 hours. Probably about hour 4, the midwife comes back in and she says, how you going?" "I'm okay." She said, "Do you want me to stay?" Now, at that time, I just felt like, 1, she didn't want to be there, and 2, I didn't need her. It was just me and Michael against the world. That's how I felt. I didn't need anyone. And it was such and a beautiful experience. I can't explain it. It was the most perfect labour ever, obviously, because, he was tiny. He was only 22 weeks. And I said no, and she left the room. I had my husband on the phone probably the last half hour when things were getting, the contractions were really getting going and stuff. And then I'll never forget when Henry's head was crowning, I was all by myself and I yelled at the top of my lungs, help! I was like, help! And the midwives come running in, and then with only like one push, Michael was born silently into the world. And I'll never forget those precious moments I got with him. I sort of feel sad that my husband didn't get to see him at that moment, but the truth of the matter is I feel deep down that he couldn't have handled it, and that's why he wasn't there. And I'm really okay with that. So, yeah, I mean, he was a beautiful baby, and I got to hold him and for a while, and some photos were taken with my mobile phone. I wasn't really prepared. I didn't know what to expect. So, and then there was a lovely organisation called Heartfelt that came the next day and took some professional photos of Michael, which we have. Obviously, they're very private, so I won't really share any of that with any of you guys. But yeah, I'm looking back. I'm really grateful for that I have photos and for the time that I got to have with Michael, even though it was very short. I mean, I've heard stories of people that have days, like 1 or 2 days with their baby in a cold cot. I didn't have that. I didn't even know. Like, they basically, it was 10 minutes. The midwife came in and said, "You're sort of done now." And I felt like that was it. I was like, okay. I was exhausted. I just was emotionally drained, physically drained. I was done. So, and then I'll never forget the next morning, my husband comes in and I say to him, "You must see Michael. He's your son. You have to hold him." So the midwife brought Michael in and he held him. Unfortunately, Michael didn't look like he did when he was first born. They lose a lot of water and stuff, but anyway, he got to hold him. And then it was like the midwife was like, "All right, see you later." We left empty-handed, and she said, "I'll come back next year. We'll have a brand new maternity ward, blah, blah, blah." And I'm thinking, we've just lost our son. I birthed on my own for 6 hours, had no support from the midwife, from anyone. I paid for this experience. Anything could have gone wrong. Anything. No one would have known. I had to scream at the top of my lungs when my baby's head was crowning. I forgot to mention, after my baby was born, the obstetrician did come in and deliver the placenta and stuff like that. So unfortunately, the drama doesn't end there. I wish it did. So I'll quickly explain what happened after. The next couple of weeks after Michael was born, I was in a lot of pain. And it turned out I had retained product. So I went back, I had an ultrasound done, I went back to the obstetrician, and he said, "Okay, well, we've got to do a D&C." Of course, I was aware that there were risks with doing a D&C, particularly with sort of Asherman syndrome, scarring. So he said he'll be very careful, use a camera to go in to make sure that no scarring occurs during the D&C. So we go in, I have a D&C, come out, and I've still got prolonged pelvic pain. Something's not right. I also have recurring UTIs. I decided to go and see the top pelvic pain specialist in the country. Actually, people fly from overseas to get surgery from him, people that have Asherman syndrome. And he looked at the ultrasounds and said, "You've got Asherman's." And I was very, very upset because I was obsessed with having another baby. That's all I could think about. And to think that this D&C and this scarring could have just ended all of that for me was just, whoa, like, no, this is not happening to me. Fortunately, I had the surgery, hysteroscopy, laparoscopy with the surgeon on my birthday, which is, anyway, it's weird how things happen. And fortunately, he was wrong. I did have Nabothian cysts partially blocking my cervix, which was the cause of the pain, which he removed. So I was pain-free after the surgery, which was great. And he said, go ahead and have a baby. So I'm going to end part 2 here. If you have any questions about my stillbirth or my experience, or if you want to reach out, please leave a comment below, send me a message. I'm more than open to connecting with all of you. Yeah, so anyway, I will create another video. There'll be like next video talking about the next phase of what led me to where I'm at now. So see you guys.